I am going to keep my camera off. I knew it'd be too good to be true, but the internet now is starting to mess up. I had it on the last 3 sessions, so I've been doing well, and then now it started to waver. So please excuse me if something happens with the internet, but we'll all come together. And I get a chance to do this along with my wonderful colleagues. So we'll introduce ourselves and get us going. My name is DeAndre Fisher. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I serve within the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department at North Seattle College. Aimee, Kate.
Cal Lezheo, Dean of Student Success at Seattle Central.
Hi, I'm Aimee Brown. I'm the Title III Director at North Seattle College in the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'll pass it to Kate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Krieg, she, her pronouns, and my title at the college is Executive Director of Pathways Initiatives. That college is central. And what that really means is that I collaborate with a lot of my wonderful colleagues to shepherd and ensure that our Seattle Pathways efforts happen.
Thank you. And we're going to give Kate a lot of grace because she just came from literally another session. So make sure you stop your camera, get you some coffee or water or something, Kate, because you're going back to back. At least I had a little break. I see you. Okay. Well, let's get us going. But maybe let's do this. It's only 15 of us. Let's see who's in the room, if that's okay with you all. Can we take time to see who's in the room? Yeah, I see thumbs up. Let's do that. It's 15 of us. Let's stop sharing. Let's get to, yeah, there we are. Let's do that. Let's go around. Whoever wants to be vulnerable to start us out first, maybe who you are and where you're from and anything you want to share with us. Let's do that before we have this conversation.
Yeah, well, hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Lynn Trepp, part-time instructor in international business at North Seattle.
I'm Jim Eaton. I teach in ESL at North.
My name is Terry Thomas, and I work in the Department of Mainstay at Seattle Central.
I'm Ariel Matthews, and I work in workforce development at the district office.
I'm Ernest Phillips, an Associate Vice Chancellor, Communication Strategic Initiatives, also on the Seattle Pathways lead team with my colleagues Kate, Aimee, and DeAndre, and helped start the first strategic enrollment management initiatives programming. And from that 2017, I think Kate and some of the others were on some of those teams to where we've evolved now is very pleasing to us. And we think we have a lot of momentum, and we're making incremental changes, but they are big changes. And I think if we continue, we have the possibility of really positioning Seattle colleges where it should be positioned in the nation and in this region in terms of a higher ed institution.
I'm Jay Oksok. I'm teaching the engineering at the North Seattle.
Hello, my name is Kelda Martinson, and I am art faculty at North Seattle College. Thank you for having me.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Andre. I work out of the district office in the workforce department on high school initiatives and dual credit.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Richards. I'm full-time faculty teaching English in the Basic and Transitional Studies Division at Seattle Central.
Hello, I'm Nathan Ormsby, and I'm faculty at Seattle Central.
Hello, I'm Jenny Mao, counseling faculty at North Seattle, and I also teach career planning class. Full sections of career planning this year.
You know, what we tend to do is forget about when we're presenting a lot of our teacher techniques. So literally, I should have said it should be popcorn style, meaning the person who introduced themselves then call on the next person to introduce themselves as well. But since we have not done it, if you've not had a chance to introduce yourself, that's all we're doing right now. So just introduce yourself and we'll get going. I see more people are joining in. I don't want to take too much of our time up, but if you got a chance, just really quickly introduce yourself and we'll get going.
Hi, my name is Sherka Faltinova, BTS, ESL, IBEST, ABE at North. Hi, Jim.
Hi, I'm Julie Randall, and I'm the Title III Director at Central.
Hey there, my name is Scott Koo. I teach Communication Studies at North.
Wonderful. Good to have everyone. If you didn't get a chance, this is your time to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are. We're a small community, but we're very mighty in this room. So let us know who you are if you don't mind.
I'm Rebecca Tesdell. I teach ESL at Central.
Wonderful. All righty. We're going to get going, and if you didn't get a chance, please do it in the chat as we get going. I do want to highlight, I know some of you all, it's so good to see so many people here, especially from North, and I say that just because North knows that I wear these hats, but I really want to highlight my brother from Central, Kerry, who really wears them hats. You can see him in the back of his background. He has a whole roll of hats, so anybody that knows me, know I love me a good hat. So shout out to you, brother. Okay, let's start with our land acknowledgement. Glad we grounded ourselves and got a chance to get to be with each other. Aimee, you want to read the land acknowledgement, or you want me to take it over?
I would love to read the land acknowledgement. So on behalf of North Seattle College, we acknowledge that we occupy the traditional ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Duwamish tribe, a people that are still here, continuing to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. Without them, we would not have access to this gathering, dialogue, and Zoom learning space. We ask that we take this opportunity to thank the original caretakers of this land who are still here. And then something I wanted to mention at the very bottom, if you are interested in some active allyship, there's an opportunity to be able to pay rent to the Duwamish tribe for the use of their land and waters. So there's an opportunity to do that. And so I know quite a few of you were with us in our last session, but for those of you who are new, potentially new to Pathways, or it's been a summer and you're trying to get back into it, we wanted to give just a quick refresher on what it was. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Kate, who will talk to us about a little bit about what Seattle Pathways is.
Thanks, Aimee. Can you go back to the... So we just want to ground our work in our larger purpose. Our larger purposes at the colleges are often codified in our strategic plans. So all of our strategic plans mention that we are working towards student success and diversity, equity, inclusion, and community. And in this work, it's really, I would say, impossible and not going to happen in a real authentic way unless our personal purposes are really connected to the larger mission. So when I think about my personal purpose, I'll just share that it's about, I do this work because no matter what's happening outside Central's doors or in our nation, when students come to Central, I want to be a part of something so that students thrive, so that they get the education that they deserve, and that then when they leave us, they can do whatever they want to do in life. And so I know that my purpose is connected to the larger organization's purpose, which, it often sounds kind of wordy, or it can be sound kind of technical or removed, but we need to make it our own, and we need to make it authentic. And I do believe I mean, everyone I've ever talked to, my colleagues, no matter what college, our purposes are really clear to us and really strong. I think that we just have different perspectives. So we just want to ground what Seattle Pathways is trying to achieve in that, and mention that it builds on these other frames that we use to achieve our mission, things like our strategic enrollment management or guided pathways. And at the colleges, we call guided pathways Seattle Pathways, just so that you know. Next slide.
Great. So if you're new to Seattle Pathways or guided pathways, as Kate said, sometimes, you know, we do use the two interchangeably because guided pathways is what's used across the country, and Seattle Pathways is our branding of it, because we're doing this work at all 3 campuses. And so these are the 4 pillars of guided pathways. So when you think of, you know, what is the theoretical framework that we're using across the country, across the nation to do this work and make institutional changes to close equity gaps and increase retention and completion, we're doing these 4 things. So we're clarifying paths to student end goals, helping students get on a path, keeping them on a path, and ensure that they're learning. And there are a lot of different parts underneath that, a lot of different activities, such as some of you that have been involved in program mapping. And so this is just a good introduction to the beginning of our work. But I know we want to get into the bulk of it, so. And then I think I'm passing this on to DeAndre to talk about kind of the structure with our lead team and how we're implementing guided pathways work.
Thank you so much, Aimee. Yes, so for those of you who are new and for those of who just need a refresher, the way our lead team for the Seattle Pathways is set up is listed as on the screen, from representation from district, south, central, and north, but also understanding that these representatives have the privilege and honor to serve in this role, but then also are stewards of being the voices to go back to their campuses, to their lead guiding team as well, and take back what we talk about in our lead team to make sure that the implementations that we talk about and also all of the pillars that were discussed earlier are really implemented in our colleges and on all of our pathways. But we give you just a glimpse here of the team that's the lead team, but then we also have a bigger team that if you were able to see in the other session that we had in workshop 1, we really called out each of our members. So thank you. And some of the lead team are in here too as well. So I thought I saw Dr. Curtin Ernest in here too. So thank him. Let's go directly to what we have is our statement that we have developed as a lead team to really ground us in the work that we are doing. But then most importantly for this statement, for us to get feedback from you all, but then also this, as we talked about the areas, and I think Kate mentioned it really well and framed it out as the importance of how we work with so many other people in the institution and a lot of our colleagues, and doing a lot of this work within our pathways on the campuses. A lot of people are saying, well, how do we lead with equity? How do we see that possible? So for this statement, for us, we want to implement this and pass this along to our colleagues to be able to have this so they can use this as just the stepping stool to get the conversation started. And then also we have action items. And I'm going to ask Aimee to get us started on this, and we'll get going.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and read this statement out loud. Everybody has different learning styles, so feel free to mute me if it works better for you to read it to yourself.
You're muted.
There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. The Seattle Pathways lead team is committed to the advancement of racial, social, and economic equity as the foundation for our guiding principles. As we become more aware of the depth and history of inequitable policies and practices, we can clearly see how the lack of leading with racial, social, and economic equity has impacted our BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color students in drastic ways and caused major achievement and opportunity gaps. We acknowledge inequities that have occurred in both the past and the present. We recognize that correcting these imbalances will take intentional action immediately and over time. And I'll go ahead and read the next part because I think this is our favorite part, or this is my favorite part of the statement. I'll speak for myself. These actions can be seen as we lead with equity-minded competency, being race conscious and aware of racial identity, using disaggregated data to identify racialized patterns of outcomes, measuring success based on the success of our students who face the greatest systemic barriers to completion, and engaging the voices and actions of students, faculty, staff, and community members to lead to sustained systemic change.
Thank you, Aimee. I paused there because I think it's important that we get a chance to actually sit with these words, because words are powerful, words have meaning, and we are intentional about when we say we're doing this work so that we're not moving into a place of just writing statements, but we're moving into a place of action. And I think that was very clear from our messaging this morning and also in the work that we see ourselves doing together. But in doing that as well, we are also mindful that we are a leadership cabinet that also does not have and hold all the voices needed to truly make these statements actionable. So today's session is our goal is to, in order for us to truly adopt these actions, we're asking that you here in our community, that we really look at these actions and I ask what comes up for you in these actions, what comes up when we read this statement for you, and how does it land rather than give us feedback. I first want to know how does this sit with you? And I know many of you have been in, that's why I don't have a camera on, because many of you have been in all of the sessions that I've been a part of today, and you're seeing now the same language, which is very, very important for us as an institution to see these statements and see this language come up in multiple settings for us to truly adopt and understand how we tend and how we plan to move in this work. So I'll now open up the floor to you all just to hear, and we'll go back either to the first one and then we can go to this one, Aimee, but I just want to know how this has landed with you all as the lead team has come up with this statement. Any thoughts, feedback, or feelings for you?
I have a thought or a feeling as I read this. I guess I feel like I see so many statements around equity, and while I feel like this one is more in depth than some others, I wonder if it's possible to take a look at how specific we can be in it, particularly the second page where there are the bullets, like, you know, saying that you're going to engage the voices of faculty members and students and whatnot who are a part of these communities, but like, how is that actually going to happen? I feel like that's always where these tend to fall short, is that they say it'll happen and then there's, you know, there's someone in the room, but is that really engaging them? And how specific can we be in this statement to ensure that as this is given to other groups, there's kind of actually a guidebook on how to do this? Or I don't know how long you're wanting to make this statement anyway, but the more specific, the better, I guess is my point.
Thank you so much. And a part of our PowerPoint today is that we're actually giving 3 examples on how this is done. So you're hitting it right on the nail for us to actually give actionable steps to as well. And let me be clear, I agree with you about tired of seeing statements and the words and what does it look like and how do we do it. So let me tell you, we're not offended when you say that. And I thank you for being vulnerable to say that, because that means a lot to us to say that and actually hear that from you. So thank you. And then I also want to make sure we're watching the chat too as well. And Dr. Yo, I promise I'm not going to pick on you, because you have been so vulnerable in all your words in everything that you've done just this week. And I do not want to tax you to bring it up again, but I hear you. I recognize what you just put in the chat, and I want to say thank you again.
Oh yeah, I just, we're all, what do you mean by race conscious? Race conscious for who? Like, I'm a Black woman, I'm always race conscious. What are we talking about? Like racial identity, like what do you mean by racial identity? Who's, like, is it for the dominant group to be more aware, more race conscious and more aware of their racial identity? Or is it for the people impacted by like racism or marginalized historically underrepresented students? And like, who is this? That's the ambiguous part for me.
Thank you.
I want to second that, because that's what popped out to me was, as a white person, I think a lot of white people compartmentalize race and racial identity issues as not being part of our responsibility, or like that's this category, that's not our work. And I think of Asayo Inoue's work around anti-racist writing assessment ecologies, where he really talks about examining the racial habitus that we live in, that is the status quo, that focusing the work on undermining the idea that we're not racial, that we're not racialized, as opposed to focusing on, so I think you're asking us to give us our responses to that, not critique it. But I wanted to say, I think that I hope that that's where we're moving, is to moving away from having language that ends up making white people feel like this isn't our work, because the work really is actually us undermining that idea that it's not our work.
No, we're asking just for what you're bringing today. So this is what we're asking for. So this could be a better conversation for us as a lead team to hear and actually take note into it. So thank you. So let's keep this conversation going. This is great conversation. Lynn, I seen you on mute. You had?
Yeah, so I have a comment, maybe because I'm a business instructor and we deal with data, but the second bullet point, I don't see the need to have the word disaggregated there. I mean, all data is valuable, whether it's quote unquote disaggregated or aggregated. So, and it might be confusing, like some people, I don't really even know what you mean by disaggregated data, because if you're going to identify a pattern, patterns consist of aggregated data. Anyway, that's just me nitpicking. Don't worry about me. But I would just remove the word disaggregated and just leave the word data there. To just leave data hanging out there. That gives you the options to pick low-hanging fruit, high-hanging fruit, whatever you want.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. I want to thank you for your comments. I know when I think about the disaggregating of the data, I also thinking about how we disaggregate certain and how we lump up certain categories of the data too as well. Certain identities are lumped up in one and considered one big data point. And we know historically that a lot of our data too, how it's written out, how it's presented and things of that nature does a lot of disservice to some categories. So I agree with you. Maybe disaggregate data by race. Yes, thank you, Dr. Yo. But this is great. This is what we want. This is what we want, feedback on how faculty and staff and others will read this. So thank you, Lynn. Anything else?
I actually think that disaggregated is important, and if this is helpful, Lynn, when I think about it as a woman, when sometimes the data that breaks down, say, wages increasing, and when you actually disaggregate it and look at it, the difference between men's wages and women's wages, you see that actually men's wages have increased disproportionately and women's wages have gone down. But overall, when you lump them together, it looks like everyone's wages have gone up. And so that's the value of disaggregating, and putting it in there draws attention to the fact that this is a really thoughtful process that's looking at those differences. That would be.
If I may jump in too, I just want to tag along what Marjorie you just said about disaggregation. Sometimes by disaggregating data, you get really sense not all groups are lumped into one. You can really delve into it, analyze, provide more specific intervention. So one example, our Board of Trustees have to keep jumping on this issue. We say, by and large, in general, Asian students seems to do well in terms of completion, access, the number generally shows so. But that data itself hides the fact there are specific populations, the Hawaiian, Pacific Island Asian students don't do very well. So by disaggregating, we can see there are portions of Asian students need our attention intervention. So it's aggregating by race, sometimes part-time students versus students working full-time versus part-time. How do they perform? So I think there are moments, there are conditions where disaggregation can help get to the picture, and we can provide appropriate intervention.
All right, thank you, Chancellor. Didn't even know you popped in here. Good to see you. All right. Okay, so recognizing the conversation still continues. Anything else that stood out for you all? How did it land? Any more questions? And then we'll go on now to the action part two, but wanted to just close that space, but we'll come back to it. Okay. All right, we're ready to go, Aimee. Go ahead and go to the net, go do the action. Who's up first? Okay. There we go. Kate, this is you.
Hey everybody, it's Kate again. So we just wanted to give a couple of examples of this sort of enacting these sorts of statements. And Marjorie, thanks for what you said earlier. Ariel, thanks for what you said earlier. Thank you, Marjorie, too. Because I'm having sort of the same thoughts about statements. And I think that sort of our concerns about them generally have already been said by others, so I won't repeat that. But what I'm thinking about too is this image that I saw recently in a training, and it's this image of a bunch of traffic. So just imagine yourself on I-5 and you're stuck in traffic. There's all these cars around you, and you say to yourself in your own car while you're stuck in that traffic, you know, who do these people think they are? Where are they going? Why is there all this traffic? Why are they making all this traffic for me? But you're a part of the traffic too. And the point of that is, like, when we sort of say, how do we enact this sort of racial equity work? What do we do? Who's going to make it real, or how does it get made real? We are the ones that we've been looking for. Like, we are the leaders stuck in our own traffic. We are the traffic. We make our own culture. And I know that we all know that. It was just a useful image for me to remind myself of. Anyway, so that being said, one of the ways that Central is trying to enact grounding all of our efforts in achieving our racial equity goals is by really understanding that pathways is not just about technical solutions. If anybody knows what we're being asked for in terms of pathways at the state level, you will notice that it is all technical. It's like, you know, produce a database, or you know, be able to track students, or code differently. Those are all technical solutions, right? But really the heart of the work is what is complex. And that's the tricky thing about pathways. On the surface, we can't be seduced by just implementing the technical solutions that it says are going to solve our problems, because the problem that we're trying to solve are the racialized opportunity gaps that we see. And so one thing that Central has done is said, then to really tackle complex problems that on the surface we're being asked to just implement technical solutions for, we need to address what we need to address the fact that everybody's at a different place in their understanding of terminology around race, racism, racialization. Central is basing its efforts in critical race theory. So we partnered with a group called Educate to Liberate, and all of our Pathways folks are going through racial equity adaptive leadership training. So these are the 3 goals of the Institute. A big group of us just finished up the Institute last week. So it's really important to us that we try to do the work in the right way. And by that, I mean like really going after the complex, hard issues and not being seduced by just the technical solutions that Pathways seems to present as the answer.
Thank you, Kate, for giving us that.
Hello, everyone. Cal Lezheo, Dean of Student Success. I'm feeling a little under the weather if my voice sounds a little off. But I got to say, I'm really glad I'm here being a part of the conversation. I really feel like what you are feeling is the same thing I'm feeling as a Dean of Student Success. So what I'll be doing today is speaking about our work in our advising and retention services in the student success area. So I just want to be clear as far as which areas I'm talking about. So it's not just advising. We have Running Start, TRIO, Career Exploration, Service Learning and Co-op in our Seattle Promise area. So a lot of this work that I'm talking about really is a collective effort of probably about 20 to 24 staff, maybe a little bit more. I'll start. So as far as the work that we've done and the work that we plan on doing around equity and how I personally think about it, there's been 2 phases. Each phase has been about a year. Unfortunately, I didn't get these slides set up where it aligns nicely to that. But the first phase is pretty much around what makes a healthy community. That's a question that we use to drive what we wanted to come up with as far as a document. So this was work that happened last year. So that work really began around, I think, it's kind of similar to what Kate talked about earlier. Like for me, I guess there's this quote, I always, well, not a quote, but there's a saying, students don't do what we say, they do what we do. The importance of that saying is that if we in our community, the staff are, if we're being toxic, what happens is students see that. And within that toxic community, there can be no healing. You might have one-offs as far as like a few successes here and there, but you won't have collective like success. So that was one of the things that drivers as far as like, okay, well, we really need to figure out this answer. And another piece to this is a lot of times, people talk about, well, we need to have trust and safety, but like you all, like, what does that mean? Like, what does trust and safety mean? How do we build it? How do we get it? For me, those things are, they're hard won. It takes a lot of time. So another piece that we wanted to surface, okay, what do we mean by this? So over the past year, what we did as a group, as a collective, was meet once a quarter to explore this question and really come up with a document that we all feel like it's a living document. It surfaces our expectations for ourselves, and we believe these expectations are what it takes to build a healthy community of students and staff. Out of that, there were 11 themes with a few clarifying bullet points, and what I'll do is I'll copy this into the chat window so you all can see one example of this. Let me see. So I just pasted it into the chat. So that was pretty much phase 1, and I got to say it was an honor to work with all the staff. I thought this document was awesome, and one of the things I told staff was like, look, you all now get to hold me accountable to these expectations as well. If you don't see me acting within this community agreement, let's sit one-on-one and talk about it, because this is what we agreed to as far as how we need to work together. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up too was, I think Kate had mentioned something about being authentic. Like there's nothing more authentic than having 20 or 21 individuals come up with like, these are our expectations, as opposed to somebody else writing it and saying, okay, this is yours now. You all work with these guidelines or principles. So that was pretty much the first phase. The second phase was, it pretty much started this past summer, and the expectation is that we're gonna be doing this work throughout this whole next year. Okay, it looks like I have 6 minutes. So the first question, or my first confusion like you all, was, okay, well, I don't know what the word equity means now. I'm not, I don't always agree with how it's used. So this past summer, the directors and deans at the 3 Seattle colleges, we all got together and we answered this question: what does it mean to be an equity-minded advisor? So out of that meeting, we said, okay, for us to be an equity-minded advisor, these are the things that we believe we need to do. So it got us a little closer to, I think, what Ariel was trying to get at. You have these vague terms or ambiguous terms, but what does it actually mean as far as actions? So out of that meeting, we created another document. I'm going to share that with everyone. So we created this long list, and it said, okay, if this is what it means to be equity-minded. And the awesome thing was, a lot of this stuff was around being race conscious, understanding students. So what I did next was I took it to my team this past summer. So the directors and managers and we sat down and we looked over this document. And what we said was, well, there's still this concept of theory, and we still need to move it a little closer to what it looks like for the practitioner. So we're really trying to put on our practitioner's hat. And out of that meeting, we said, there's a couple things that we want. Number one, we want to involve our staff in every part of the process. Well, we also felt that, this should be a year-long process given all the work that we have to do. Actually, there was another piece. We said, we can't just go about this without some sort of framework. And the awesome thing at Central is that we have the Black Solidarity think tank. And that group, led by Dr. Kimberly McCrae, we've already started creating our own framework. So from that, I said, let's take that framework. What we found was Dr. Luke Woods and Dr. Frank Harris III, they already had these 7 equity-minded student services themes, is what I call them. I think they say practice. So I said, here are the themes that they come up with. Maybe we can use this to help us, guide us as a group for this next year to say, okay, these are the themes. It aligns nicely with what we are as a community. It aligns nicely with our equity advisor statement. Let's take this and create an arc as far as this year, as far as how we're gonna work together as a collective to really flesh out the practices that we advisors would do at the ground level. So first, let me copy and paste this for you all to see. This is awesome, the 7 practices, it's relevant for all, I would say even faculty. So I teach every fall. And these practices, it's useful for what? So I'm gonna read them real quick. Be culturally relevant and affirming, be flexible and compassionate, be community focused, be informed, be race conscious, be responsive, and be relational. I know Dr. Yo, you said those are ambiguous, and I would agree with that. So I think for us, we were like, okay, well, what's this arc gonna look like for this next year? So in our directors and managers meeting, we said, for this next year, we're gonna do this, or we're gonna present this to our staff. Maybe this fall as a collective, we'll watch one of the webinars by Dr. Luke Woods. And then for the winter, what we can start doing then is based on that conversation, translate that into practices for us as far as practitioners. And in the spring, we're gonna finalize this document where it clearly lays out this is what I will do at the ground level as a practitioner that's equity focused. So that's the arc that we're gonna present to our staff, and hopefully, they will give us a lot of good ideas as far as how we can do it. But the goal is really to take these concepts that we use a lot and see how we can make it authentic, and then see how guided pathways with a lot of its like essential practices aligns with what we as a collective feel like would help our students. So in short, I got 1 minute. So it's been a fun time, and this will help our guided pathways work. I'm gonna end there. We got, sorry.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for all your work, Cal, and all the advising work at Central. So I'm just going to share just a quick example at North, and then I'm going to hand it back over to DeAndre to close out. So one of the things that it's so interesting with guided pathways work, because it's like, okay, well, where is equity in guided pathways work? It's everywhere. And so this is just one small example that we're doing at North. We have really thought about engaging students in an important way, because students have all this lived experience. They know what they need. They know what's broken in our system. So we have worked really hard to include students on guiding team and on all relevant subcommittees. We actually had students at our North guiding team retreat this summer. We've been doing a lot of focus groups and surveys. We had a Students of Color panel. And one of the big things that I'll just say is it's important to pay students for their work. So we've been really intentional about making sure that students get paid. And then something that we're having students do is upcoming beginning fall, they're going to be able to be paired with faculty to work on guided pathways specific projects that at North we call 100-day projects. So I will pass it over to DeAndre to close us out.
Many thanks, everyone, for being here with us today. We realize that it's 2 and there's other things happening that people may want to get a chance to get to, but hopefully in today's presentation, you were able to, and we'll send this out to the campus on behalf of our lead team, not only the statement, but then also examples that we're using to make sure that we actually are standing on our statement, but there's more than just words. So hopefully you all got a chance to really understand some of the ways that we are leading with equity in the work that we're doing, specifically centering our guided pathways. For those who are in our session, are there any questions to any of the members who got a chance to present thus far? All righty. I'm not going to beg for questions because we've been on these Zooms all day. So I recognize that. But I do want to make sure to say thank you to our lead team, and thank you to my co-presenters who were able to present. And we encourage you all to get involved, and also as well go and join the jam sessions that are happening too as well. And good to see you, Chancellor, for joining. And of course, Dr. Rosie, thank you for being here too as well. Thank you all.